my paranormal peeps, and welcome back to another Deep Woods Paranormal podcast. My name is Matt Harvey. I am the founder and lead investigator with Deep Woods Paranormal, and on this podcast, we are making the paranormal normal. So, we're going to basically talk about how to find Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call them, on this podcast. I get so many questions of, how do I find Bigfoot, Matt? Where do I go looking for them? What do I need to do this? What gear do I need? What do I need to be looking for? How do I break down the evidence? How do I know if it's a Bigfoot or not? So we'll go into basically the research mindset, how to choose a location, what the essential gear is, the field research basics, and evidence review, We'll also talk about ethics and safety, and then I'll kind of wrap it up from there. So let's start from the beginning. Okay, so let's get into Bigfoot here. I've been researching Bigfoot for over 15 years now, and I know a lot of people in the field have been doing this a lot longer than me. I kind of stumbled across Bigfoot. I've always talked about my first experience at Black Star Canyon, where I went from a non-believer to a believer. And if you guys want to listen to that, you can go back to any of the other podcasts that have Bigfoot in it. And I have a whole thing on Black Star Canyon. You guys can look back for that. But so I basically stumbled on them, became a believer, and then realized, oh my goodness, I've been experiencing Bigfoot for years and not known it. Tree knocks, possible sightings, and footprints and other things that they were doing. The tree knocks, I had no idea that was Bigfoot behavior. So I really had to figure out how am I going to find this creature? There was a lot of shows, thank God, on TV about them. I'd grown up watching shows on Bigfoot, right? And I had to get my mindset correct. Number one, how was I going to document them? Number two, what gear was I going to use? Number three, were the other locations I was going to go to besides Black Star Canyon, because that's kind of where I got my start with them. And, how was I going to go about doing it? And then also, how aggressive was I going to be towards these things? Was I going to just go straight up to one and try and record it? Or was I going to sit back and essentially just try and document them? So these were all things I had to kind of choose. For me, safety is a high priority, so I don't want to get involved with Bigfoot up close and personal, although I've done it a couple times by accident. Had some close encounters with the Bigfoot kind. But okay. So the research mindset. Let's talk about the research mindset going into Bigfoot when you're going to look for Bigfoot. You really have to take your time. You really have to be patient with them. Imagine this. I always use this analogy. Imagine I came walking into your living room, and this goes with both ghost hunting and Bigfoot research. I really kind of learned this more when I was at Joe's camp, because basically Joe's camp was like a living room for the Bigfoots. They kind of lived on the outskirts of his property somewhere. And then, of course, he had 55 acres, and his whole family owned thousands and thousands of acres up there. But they lived on that land, and it was pretty wild up in Sabine National Forest. And I started looking for other reports in the area, and I just started seeing clusters all around where he lived. So that was my first experience with trying to figure out, how am I going to look for these things? And then, of course, you have witnesses. Joe was a great witness. He had people around him that were witnesses, family members. He had neighbors. All had stories to tell. And so that's kind of where you want to start. You have to become an armchair researcher, as they call us. It starts with basically doing research online. Start looking up, the way I started at least, and you can do it however you want. I looked up reports online, and then I started looking for real credible reports. I looked through the BFRO websites. I looked at other credible websites here in Texas and, of course, in California. And what I did is I took Google Maps, and everywhere I found a Bigfoot report, I dropped a pin in that location. And I spent months and months and months and months going through and doing this. And then I realized that I'd pinned maybe 100, 150 places all along California, Oregon, Nevada, and then, of course, down into Arizona and possibly into Mexico too. So I pinned all these pins and I started looking for clusters. And I know I had Bigfoot sighting in Black Star Canyon. So Black Star Canyon is out in the Santa Ana Mountains, the Cleveland National Forest. So I started seeing reports in and around that area, right? Old reports back from the 60s and 70s of Bigfoot, believe it or not, in Orange County, Laguna Beach, San Clemente, Santa Ana, Riverside, in the surrounding areas. And then as I went through the pins, I realized that those had all shrunk back into the Cleveland National Forest. And my research area was just the Cleveland National Forest. So as I went, I had already had a bunch of encounters just along about a 2 or 3 mile stretch. For some reason, they were interested in me, right? And that when that one finally showed itself to us clearly, and we had almost a daytime sighting with 30 witnesses, I realized, okay, this is where I want to research. I didn't really need to go anywhere else. I was lucky. I got one of those locations where they're here. They're not everywhere else. They're just here. So I started looking at it, and what I've learned from that too, from my other paintings, is I started painting. I took Black Star Canyon in that area and started looking everywhere I basically had an encounter. Within a 1 mile radius, I had, I don't know, 15, 20 pins. So I'm like, okay, this is an area where they live, kind of like Joe's Camp. Joe's Camp, they lived in that area. Family group, if you will, multiples. There's not just one or two, there's multiples. So what I did was I started to go out there and I started learning. I did a lot of research online on how to research Bigfoot. What's the proper way? What do I need? I need an audio recorder. I need to bring a video camera with some IR lights because it's pitch black out there. It's not pitch black. It's really, really dark. There's no light out there, right? I need a camera. I need, what else do I need? I need some kind of knocking, something I can make a tree knock with, right? And what I actually was using, believe it or not, was a 3-cell old Duracell mag light. And then I would use that to basically bang on the power lines, go on the power lines. I never really heard anything back, but I do think that kind of drew them to me. I never really heard very many screams either, but I did capture one that I know is legit in between 2 coyote calls, believe it or not, in another canyon across the way. Because the coyotes, all we heard was the coyotes. We didn't hear the Bigfoot call, but we did record it. You can use your phone. Your phone has a great audio recording on it. These are meant to hear audio. So these are perfect for recording audio if you have a nicer, more expensive phone. Doesn't matter what brand it is. I needed trap cams. So I got some trap cams. This is back 15 years ago. Trap cams we have now are much, much better. A drone. We have 2 drones. We don't have one that has infrared or thermal on it, unfortunately, because those are just way too expensive. And as much as I pay for the 2 drones I have, I couldn't, we might end up getting them upgraded in the future. So anyways, GPS, so you know where you're going. You can start to drop pins if your phone doesn't work. If you can't drop a pin on Google Maps where you are, where you've basically just had an experience, or you thought you heard something, saw something, heard a tree knock, heard a scream, and you can't drop a pin there. If you have your own handheld GPS, you can drop it on that. A casting kit. You want either plaster casting or dental mold. That's what I started with. And then you need something that collects hair samples. A lot of people just use a paper bag and they put that in there, and they need a felt tip marker, and you write on there the location, maybe even the GPS location, the time, the date, and stuff like that. You need gloves and maybe a mask, and if you need glasses, because you don't want to contaminate that sample, right? Footprints. Maybe you find a footprint. Maybe you find a partial footprint, like I've shown in the past. I had a footprint that was about 18 inches long and probably about that wide at the widest. And the dang thing, unfortunately, broke on me. And I've talked about that before. So you need to be ready for that. I carry dental plaster now because that stuff dries hard in 5 minutes. I mean, it's hard as rock. So I'd highly recommend dental plaster. And then, any kind of safety tools you need. Always bring a little bit of food, a little bit of water, or more. If you're going to camp up in these locations, you need camping gear. A lot of people like to hike into secluded locations. People think that they are very secluded, but not always. Sometimes they're right next to where you are and you don't even realize it. There's been a lot of videos coming out recently of Bigfoots right next to campsites where the Bigfoots are just kind of looking at them as they walk by and get caught on camera, which is pretty cool. So, another thing that you want to do is basically bring a notebook or notepad or some kind of something, or even just put notes in your phone so you can write down what the witnesses or type down what the witnesses told you. And if you're lucky enough to let you can either record their voice audio wise or also take a video. Because if you can go to that location where they had their experience and record, then you can start to look around for other evidence too. Hopefully the incident hasn't happened too long ago. Hopefully it's not years and years. Hopefully it's just, a couple weeks, a month, a day, or whatever, so that you can basically go up there and start to document the activity. All right, so what to look for. Again, tree knocks. You want to listen for howls, screams, structures. Basically, when you go up there might be teepees. You want to watch the ground. You look for sticks and different weird arrangements that don't look normal. You want to look for areas that have been trampled, game trails, because Bigfoot do follow game trails. And if you're up there and you're looking around, you're going, wait, that looks like somebody made a blind, and you're in the middle of nowhere, and there aren't any hunters in that area. And that, and the sticks are like, there's like a branch pulled over like this, and there's sticks interwoven into it, and maybe plants have been pulled up and tree trunks have been put into it real weird. Then you might have something. If it doesn't look like a natural man-made structure, it could possibly be a Bigfoot structure. At that point in time, you definitely want to make sure you have your sample collection, right? You want to look for hair samples. You want to look for hair with skin on it, which is great because then they can do a better DNA analysis. You want to make sure you have a test tube or something to put that sample into, a bag, like I said. Write down where you were and all that stuff, like I said before. If you can get a plaster casting of a footprint, a handprint, maybe something laid down. Maybe you're lucky enough to find a nest, what looks like a giant bird nest. Sometimes they'll take and they'll push the ground out like this. If it's soft sand, they'll make almost like a bathtub. We found those at Joe's camp. He had really soft sand where they pulled that apart. And honestly, I think we walked in on while they were sleeping. Maybe they were just getting up and they just skedaddled out of there. That's when I almost walked into a Bigfoot. Now, you guys have probably heard that story too. If you're a first-time listener, go back and listen to some of my old stories. Hold on just one second here. Okay. So let me go back into researching the area. So what I do, again, I look on Google. I do a Google search or whatever search engine you use, and then like I said, I look for clusters. And when I'm looking for clusters, you can go back and look. I've done many podcast kind of tutorial videos on this before. I'm looking for areas where there's been multiple sightings, and I'm looking for more recent sightings. At that point, I'm probably turning to social media, maybe going into the Bigfoot groups and looking at that and saying, maybe leaving a comment. Hey, has anybody had an sighting in this area? Or are there any witnesses from this area? A lot of the time, especially here out in Texas, people are very hesitant to come forward about their sightings. They do not like to let people know they've had a sighting. They get ridiculed, which is silly. It's like everybody's like, no, 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 you didn't really see that, or they're made fun of, or whatever. It's really sad. That really shouldn't happen. Everybody should just have an open mind, and that's just not how society is anymore, unfortunately. But if you're lucky enough, you leave a comment on there. Maybe somebody messaged you privately, and you can get information that way. Maybe they agree to meet up with you, or take you out to the area, show you, and maybe if you're lucky enough, they'll agree to be on camera or at least audio, and they can basically show you the area where it happened, whatever happened. Like we had a client where he was driving down the road in between, like an old dirt road, in between two homesteads. And essentially, this Bigfoot came running down the river, ran up the bank, climbed up over the barbed wire, basically stepped over the barbed wire. He said it was about 8 to 10 feet tall. Ran across the road, took like 2 steps to cross this road, and it's a single lane highway. Actually, it's a double lane highway. I'm sorry. So that's pretty good. I mean, that's quite the gate. Stepped over the other barbed wire fence, ran back down into the creek, and took off. And by the time he got out of his car and looked down there, it was gone. And he said that he knew the guy that lived down there, and he had talked to him about it. And he is also kind of into Bigfoot, and he had his own Bigfoot encounters on his own property. So that Bigfoot was basically hanging out in that area. It was using the creek to go up and down the roads. I mean, yeah, to go up and down and not be seen. So when you're listening for tree knocks, one thing I'd recommend, when you get out into the field, you get to wherever you're going, number one, slow down. Slow down, take your time, even if you're not in your research area yet. Slow down, look around. Do you see tree branches snapped? Do you see any kind of structures? Footprints. Start looking for footprints. Because sometimes, it's best to go out sometimes after it's rained for a couple of days. Because sometimes they'll make the mistake of stepping in a muddy spot, and they do leave a footprint from time to time. If you're lucky enough, that spot will they'll indent their foot into the mud or whatever, the sand or whatever it is, that soft surface enough to leave a little bit of an indent, and then you can actually cast that if it's mud or sand or whatever, as long as it's not full of water. That happened to me multiple times at Joe's camp. He got a lot of rain. They get a lot of rain because he lives on the Texas-Louisiana border. East Texas gets quite a bit of rain, even more than we get here. And we went out there to cast a footprint, and it's full of water. And so we're like taking a little plastic spoon and trying to get the water out. And as we're doing it, the whole footprint's just collapsing in on us. And we're like, oh, but we document it. We get a video of it. We put our hand down next to it, or a water bottle next to it, or I carry a tape measure. It's important if you can carry a little tape measure. I know it's an added weight, but if you can carry a little tape measure, you can at least mark how long the cast is. I mean, how long the footprint is, how wide it is. And then you can get a really good picture of it too that way. But always document everything. Always have your video camera running. One thing I learned, I got out of my car one time at Joe's camp, and I've told this story before, but I just pulled up, and I think they knew the sound of my Bronco. The Bigfoots did. And this must have been like the dominant male. So this thing was huge. I mean, literally huge. So I get out, and I left my handy cam in the passenger seat, right? Hadn't turned it on or anything, just had it out. It had the little battery attached to it, was ready to go. Old Sony handy cam. And it's not quite dark. His property had a lot of huge pine trees. So basically it was kind of shady. But so I get out and Joe comes walking over and we're chit chatting and I turn and I saw a movement out of the corner of my eye. I was kind of standing this way and he was kind of standing this way. And I see movement out of the corner of my eye up his property. And his property was like a football field. There was two old logging roads that kind of zigzagged its way up through the top of his property, and then one that kind of zigzagged across this way about the middle of his property. And it's all washed out now because he has lots of natural springs, excuse me, which I think drew the Bigfoots down to that area. By the way, if you're ever looking for a good spot to look to research, anywhere natural springs is always good because usually those water sources, not always, but most of the time they're at least dribbling a little bit, and that's clean, fresh water that's filtered from the ground. I wouldn't drink it without boiling it or filtering it, and or both. But possibly an animal that could be out there, right? So this is all possibilities. So essentially, I get out there and we're chit chatting. I'm saying hello. And I see movement out of the corner of my eye, and he had a pine tree that was probably 3 feet in diameter, right? And this thing had to be pushing 100 feet taller. And right behind it was his blind, and his blind was about 6 feet wide because I helped him build it. It was about 5 feet off the ground where the roof was, and this thing probably just above the knees, and then down below that, I'm just going to be more specific here. Down below it kind of dropped down a little bit. That's where the road was. I keep hitting this stupid mic. So that's where the road was, and it kind of sloped down about 3 or 4 feet, right? So that would have made the top of his blind about 8 feet tall. So standing next to basically right behind the blind, all we can see is about like chest high. We can see about like the stomach area of this thing, 8 feet tall, right? And above it, there's these huge branches that come out 10, 15 feet. Beautiful tree. And very thick, very full of needles and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, we just see the branches like split up about 12 feet up. But another 4, 5 feet above his blind. And you'd see something kind of like, tilt its body down sideways, like if I was leaning to my right with the branches open so I could see through the branches. And this thing's sitting there staring at us. And I'm like, oh, he's like, you got your camera? I'm like, it's in the car. So I'm like, yeah, I just got to walk back to my car for something. I said it out loud. So, tell this thing, oh, I'm not going for my camera, right? Yeah, right. So by the time I get to the camera, I turn around and I'm like, is it still there? He's like, no, it's gone. It took about one step and disappeared back into the forest. So I gave chase. I ran over there and I couldn't even find a footprint. It was really dry at that point in time. But yeah, wherever it went, I don't know where it went. It must have gone back further into the trees. The front half of his property was forested, and then in the middle he had about a 40 foot section that he cleared all the trees and kind of trying to make a location where he could, he had his camp, he had his trailers, he had multiple trailers, and then he had just gotten rid of the one in the middle, so that area was open now. But essentially, yeah, that was really cool to have that experience. I did see that one later on. I don't know if it was that year or the year after. We researched at Joe's camp for almost 5 years. And so later on, I did see that one. I caught it mid-stride. Literally, one foot was on one side of the road, the other foot was on the other side of the road. So it was literally like, kind of like looking like, it looked like a tree to me. And I've told this story before too, and I'll get back into the other stuff in just a minute here, guys. But literally, it looked like a tree, and it was just standing there. And middle of the day, I'm like, Joe, is there a tree there? And he looked up. He's like, no. So we were actually sitting at a table, and I had the monocular, not night vision, just daytime. And so I'm zooming in. I'm like, holy crap. It's a Bigfoot, and it had to be standing 15, 16, 17, 18 feet tall. It was tall. It took up the whole road. I mean, it was it was just ginormous. Probably the biggest one I'd ever seen. But I zoomed in on the eye. This one was solid black. And I zoomed on the eye, and he always told me they look like they're wearing sunglasses. So I'm like, that's weird. So I'm looking at the eye, and this eye is the size of a baseball. I'm like, what the hell? And I'm looking at the pupil, and it's actually solid white. So I don't know if they have had some kind of a lens that come over their eyes for the day that helps them walk around and see during the day, or causes them not to have such a harsh reaction, or maybe the sun was actually reflecting off the skin. That's the only other thing I can think of. Maybe it was reflecting off the skin, making the skin kind of look white instead of dark. And then the eyeball, maybe I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that one out. Anyways, if you guys have had an experience like that, comment down below. I'd love to hear about it. All right. So, anyways, that's why you always have to have the camera ready to roll, especially if you're in the area where you know there's Bigfoots. So, what I'd recommend is that when you go into a location, like I've said this multiple times in multiple podcasts, but I'm going to say it again. You get there, take your time, look around, listen. Make sure you're smelling. Smell. Since the smell is good, make sure you can smell really well. Because all of your senses will basically tell you if you're in the right place or not. Slowly but surely, take a look around. 360. Don't, just because there are no trees or whatever on the other side of where you're at, or maybe on a road, maybe pulled over on the side of the road. You saw something in the trees, tree line. Go walk down there if you're able to safely do it. Walk down, take a look around. If you don't have a video camera with you, you've got a perfect tool in your hand unless it's nighttime. Turn your video camera on. Look around, as long as it's safe to go down in that area. And worst case scenario, GPS it. Okay, I'm coming back here during the day. And then really take a look around and then look at your pins. Hey, there's a Bigfoot hotspot like a mile or two away. Bigfoot's, just because there's a hotspot in one area doesn't mean they won't wander around that area. If you can, like I said, if you can find a place where there's 3 pins, 4 pins, 4 sightings, 5 sightings, 10 sightings, and then you see another cluster like 5 miles away or in the next community, county, whatever, and then maybe you find another set of pins up in that other county. Look and see. Does it form a triangle? Does it form a circle? That area in between might be an area to research. And again, you guys can go back to my old videos where I do this. And then also sometimes with Google, where you drop a pin, if you're next to a road or something like that, you can actually drop that. You can drop that little character down on that road, and you can actually visually look around. So even though that might be 3 years old, 2 years old, a year old, you can still get a visual look. The next thing I'd recommend is actually just doing a daytime drive-by if it's not too far away. And if you have the time, why not? Hop in the car, go out and take a look. If it's an hour away, 2 hours away, 5 minutes away, whatever, go take a look around. Again, always make sure you have something you can record with, audio and video. Look and see what is there. Are you seeing any signs of Bigfoot? If there's somebody around, maybe somebody lives there. If you're brave enough, if you see somebody out on that property, maybe wave at them. Hey, how you doing? My name is Matt. I'm out here looking for things that don't exist. Have you seen one of these? Half the time you get these weird looks like, okay, he's nuts. Or the other half of the time you get, oh, well, yeah, kind of, very sensitive. Or they come out, yeah, that damn Bigfoot, he drives me nuts. I've got the decals on my car, and people stop me all the time. Hey, I've seen one along the Brazos River. I just talked to a guy recently. He has a farm right over off the Brazos River, right over by where I work. Those damn things come in and steal, my corn, and they steal, stuff my vegetables. And I've never heard of them stealing a chicken, but sometimes they do take livestock. And so he was very adamant how much he hates them and how much they smell. And I got a pin drop from him, which is amazing. And one of these days, hopefully I'll be able to get a hold of him again. And he said just to, go out to the Brazos River. They're out along the Brazos River, which I've heard many times. All right. So, okay, so you're listening for tree knocks, you're listening for howls, you're looking for tracks, you're looking for structures. I do think that if you get an opportunity to get into an area like I did with Joe's and Black Star Canyon, they do tree knocks at certain times. Like Joe lived with them for 18 years, almost 19 years. And the last time I came up there, the first thing I hear is, like, what the hell? Tree knock. And then I hear, okay, there's another one. And then I hear, like, off in the distance in different locations. And there was about five of them. And I'm talking to Joe, and we're both sitting there quiet. And he goes, yeah, that happens every day around noon. I'm like, oh, okay. I think that really is them trying to communicate with each other. Where are you? Maybe they're out hunting. You know, a lot of people say, oh, Bigfoots don't come out during the day. Yeah, I think they do. I don't think they're just nocturnal. I think they hunt day and night. I think they move as they want to and as they're hungry. I mean, if you're hungry, you're going to go to the cupboard, right? And grab some food or something, go to the fridge or go buy something from somewhere and eat it. I don't think Bigfoot's any different. I think if they're hungry, they're going to eat. If they're thirsty, they're going to go drink. They're not going to, just because, oh, it's not nighttime, I can't go out. I think they're going to be more cautious, maybe. They're going to take their time. They're going to be more alert. Walking through the dark, they have an advantage. They can see in the dark much better than we can, probably. But anyways, all right. Okay, so evidence review. So you really have to be careful with anything paranormal, really, but especially Bigfoot. You really have to learn what's what. And, a lot of people out here, they know every noise in the forest. I'm still learning, but, they know every last noise. They know the noise a coyote makes. They know a noise deer make. Deer make some really crazy noises. A lot of the times they can sound like a Bigfoot. There's birds that sound like a damn screaming woman. Barn owl can make a noise that sounds like somebody's being bloody murdered. And sometimes that's associated with Bigfoot. So you really have to be careful with what you present as evidence. When you're breaking down your evidence and maybe you caught something cool, maybe share in a group. Hey guys, what is this? And don't present it as Bigfoot evidence. Ask somebody else, especially if you're still learning. I'm constantly learning. I have people tell me, oh, that's this, that's that. You hear me, if you've ever seen any of our documentation of Bigfoots, you hear me, like, my ears perk up and I'm like, I'm going, okay, what's that? What's that noise? I have an advantage now. I'm at a disadvantage because my hearing sucks. But with my hearing aids in, I hear other things that other people don't. And I have different settings I can set on my hearing aids so I can hear, like, every single noise. And I'm hearing I'm going, okay, what in the hell? Who's walking around? And everybody's like, we're not moving, Matt. I'm like, but there's something, and nobody else can hear it but me. And it's like, okay, I'm hoping that we're recording this on the recorder, right? I did the audio recorder, the video recorder. So yeah, you got to really be careful what you present as evidence, whether it's a photo, a video, an audio clip. Have someone else take a look at it if you're not sure. If for us, if I can't say that's a Bigfoot for sure, I don't present it as evidence. I might put a photo out there, but our standard is it has to be somebody has to be able to look at it and go, yeah, I think that's a Bigfoot. It can't be, well, there's something standing behind the tree, or there's something standing in the bush, or that might be an arm, or I think I see something. I really want it to be that money shot, right? We're not going to present something, we do present eye shine, and I think that's pretty good because these things are elusive. They're very hard to document. They know what you're doing, and they get curious too. They're as curious about us as we are them, and I think it kind of becomes a game of, okay, what are they doing? Okay, I'm going to look and take a look, and I might get my eyes seen, but I'm not going to get seen. My body's not going to get seen, right? It's how close can they get without essentially showing themselves. And sometimes they make a mistake and stuff like that. One thing, if you're putting out trail cams, do not put them out low. Don't put them 2 feet off the ground, 3 feet off the ground, unless there's just no other place to put it and you just cannot get it up in a tree or get it up high, facing down. Angle them down. If this is a trail cam, I want this to be, you know, not way down here. I want it to be up here and I want it to be tilted down. I want to see the Bigfoot walk by. From what I understand, a lot of people have told me this. Now I do think they climb trees, so but a lot of people have told me that they do not look up when they walk. There's an eagle cam where you look and they weren't trying to capture Bigfoot, but a Bigfoot literally walks by as they're watching the eagles feed their babies. That's a pretty famous picture. And there's like a few other trap cam photos like that where the camera's up high. I mean, we got one where Joe had a camera up about 18 feet in a tree and its angle, he had to put a stick in behind it, a couple sticks in behind it to really get it tilted at a 45-degree angle. And we possibly caught a Bigfoot coming out from behind a blind, looking at a deer. And then as soon as the deer kind of moved, it literally came back. So that's something cool that we got. But you really have to be careful what you present as evidence. This day and age, it's a little looser than it was when we first started doing this. But I would just be careful. Don't basically post everything as a Bigfoot. Get other people's advice, and don't get upset if somebody disproves your evidence. I mean, it's 90% of the time somebody will have tell you what it is, and it happens to us a lot. But I mean, that 10% of the time, that if you're lucky, you get 10% of the time, you're good. So really make sure that you put stuff on a screen when you're listening back. Maybe wear headphones. Play it for other people. Any audio clips, see what they say. Especially if we're lucky enough out here to have a lot of people that are in the wilderness a lot and they know the noises of the forest and we can play it for them. And now they go, I have never heard anything like that. Or we'll just draw, which is cool. That means you really possibly have something. Or they'll say, oh, that's a deer, or that's a rabbit. Oh, and then you'll look up that other evidence. You'll look up the sound of that animal and on Google or whatever, and you listen to it, you're like, oh crap, it's the same thing. Okay, so then you got it. One thing I always say is safety first. If it's not safe, don't go in that area. Don't put your life in danger. Don't put anyone else's life in danger. If you're carrying any kind of a protective device, whether it be a sharp one or a one that you aim and shoot, do not draw your weapon unless you know 100% you're in danger. Number one, if you do have an encounter with a Bigfoot, more than likely you're probably gonna miss, or even if you do put a bullet into it, you're just gonna piss it off, and it's going to probably hurt you rather than it'll feel like you're even more of a threat than if you just leave it holstered and you kind of just put your hands up like this and you step back, or maybe you kind of bow your head down and step back, or maybe you just stand your ground and don't follow them, let them back off. Don't corner them is what I'm trying to say. Always leave them an out. You want to experience them, you want to document them, but you don't want to get hurt. You don't want the Bigfoot to get hurt, and you don't want anybody with you to get hurt. Be very careful where you're walking. Careful if you're walking around without gloves on. You got to be careful where you put your hands. Real easy to get punctured or bitten or whatever. Smells. When you're out there, you don't really want to have any smells on you. So bug spray, stuff like that. I mean, you can smell it a mile away. Our scent, they can probably smell us a long ways away. I mean, they probably already know that we're coming. Number one, they can probably hear us. Number two, they can probably smell us. They're probably aware that you're in their territory before you even get into their territory. If you're lucky enough, sometimes you stumble upon them or they stumble upon you. But like I said, if you have a really close encounter, don't freak out. Try not to freak out. Just back away or just stand your ground. Let them back away. and just enjoy the experience. I know a lot of people get freaked out. Oh my God, I'm never going back in the forest. But just have a mindset that you're not going to harm. And like I said, do your best to document anything that you're experiencing. I mean, once you have your first experience, it's mind blowing. It really is. Whether you're a believer or skeptical, whatever. Even if you've seen them multiple times, like I have, it's still like, oh my gosh, whoa. That for me at least. So just be careful. Don't ever trespass. Always get permission to be on wherever you're at, because if you go into that land and you have an experience and you get a really cool piece of evidence, or there's a lot of cool stuff there. Maybe there's some tree structures, some teepees, footprints, maybe you hear a vocalization or tree knock, and then whoever owns that property, or if you're on federal land or private land, that person comes out and reacts, oh, then you're in trouble, number one, or number two, you're running for your life, because they're protecting their land, and then you can't go back into that area. But if you've come to an area where there's, okay, this is, I can't go into here, but I can see stuff in the distance. It's better to get that information from that person and see if you can get permission to go on their land, because more than likely they're going to let you go on there. But anyways, like I said, always be respectful to everyone, including your fellow researchers and the people that are out there. I mean, they have to live with Bigfoot, and sometimes that can be pretty scary, especially if they're, interacting with the people. Always go, I say this, always go, don't go alone. Let me just put that way. Always have a buddy, or take your wife, take your girlfriend, take your boyfriend, take a friend, take whoever, take another enthusiast with you. Go up there and stay together. And like I said, when you're wandering up there, have a plan for what you're going to do. Don't just go wandering through the forest, stumbling and bumbling. Have a plan. Okay, we're going to go a certain amount in, and then also be under the, I've had this happen a couple of times because I go slow when I go up there. My brain, my eyes go, like open, real open. My ears pop open, and my senses go crazy. I'm constantly like looking up, looking down, looking everywhere for any signs. And literally, if you come walk into Bigfoot's living room or an area where they live, right, and you come just trudging through there like a runaway car, they're going to be on the defensive. I talked about this before. If I come walking in slowly and I'm just kind of looking around and I don't look threatening, and I'm just kind of taking my time and looking around, they're going to go, what the heck is this guy doing? It might trigger their curiosity. Maybe you will have a better chance of having an encounter, or it might just turn and walk away from you, or it might just hunker down and wait till you leave. You never know. But if you do find a tree structure, you find a teepee, or you're lucky enough to find maybe a bed of theirs, or any kind of anything, a footprint, be respectful to it. Just document it. If, of course, you're going to destroy the footprint if you cast it, but don't destroy the homes. Don't destroy the structures. Because, I mean, imagine if somebody came into your living room and tore it up, you'd be pretty pissed off, right? And you want to be respectful, so that basically now you found a cool location, they're in that area, and if you want to go back, and if they've seen you come in, I'm pretty sure they'll probably know that you've come into their territory. Even if after you've gone, they'll probably smell your scent. You want to make sure you haven't left anything damaged or anything like that. And they might be a little bit more, again, they might take all this with a grain of salt. They might be a little bit more open to you actually coming back. But if you come in and you've knocked down their structure and stuff like that, they're probably going to be very aggressive towards you, chase you out, and not want you back in that area. So, always, like I said, travel with somebody else. Let somebody know where you're going, what your plan is, because then if something does happen, you don't come back, or you're late coming back, or hey, he's not answering the phone, it's the next day, he hasn't checked in. They know where you went. They can come looking for you, because a lot of the time, Bigfoot researchers do end up getting hurt. You fall, you break a leg, you slip, you go off into an area, and all of a sudden you get lost. GPS doesn't work, no cell phone service, yada yada yada, and then essentially you have an issue. So, in my closing thoughts, again, just be open minded. I don't care if you're a skeptic, a believer, a knower, a non believer, you're on the fence, whatever. Just be open. Remember to be respectful to these animals. Um, they live in the forest, and this is their house, their living room, their whatever you want to think of it as. Just make sure you have the gear that you think you're going to need. Don't forget an evidence kit. I've done that multiple times. Gone out there and there's a hair sample. Oh, there's a footprint, and you can't cast it because you don't have your plastic casting. Or hey, look at this cool structure, and thank God I had one of these, right, and a phone that I could basically go through and document it video wise. Also, when you document anything, picture wise or whatever, landscape, guys, landscape. Don't do the small little picture, do the landscape, because a lot of these phones are very good now. They're very high megapixels. So what if you miss something? If you do the smaller square, the phone upright, portrait mode, and you try and zoom in, that picture is going to be a little more pixelated, right? So when it's long ways, it's a little bit more, there's more pixels in it, meaning there's just a little more squares in there. So when you zoom in, a lot of the times what people don't realize is in pictures, when you take pictures of areas where Bigfoots are, there's actually a Bigfoot in the picture. And when you start kind of looking in through around, you're like, oh, wait, there's a Bigfoot back there. But if it's too small, it's just going to be pixelated. You won't be able to see it at all. A lot of the time, you have to really zoom in to see it. And thank God these phones are much better now. But anyways, like I said, be respectful to everyone around you. Don't trespass. Go in pairs. Make sure you have everything you think you're going to need. Always over prepare. Try not to pack your pack too heavy. Make sure you pack whatever you think you're going to need. I carry a baseball bat. Sometimes I bring trail cams if I'm going to be in that area for a long period of time. Always put the trail cams up as high as you can get them and angle them down. And we got a cat up here. Mr. Binks is saying hello to us. So, yeah, if you guys have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. I'm getting overridden by cats here. But, yeah, leave comments down below, and I'll try and answer them as best I can. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. But, yeah, I'm just basically covering the basics. I have other videos. If you go back through our podcast, I have other videos where I go through in detail about research locations and how to find them, how to do the research online. So if you guys want to go back and listen to that, you're welcome to. And if you haven't already, please go check out our YouTube channel. I'll leave a link down below. And then also don't forget about our Spreaker channel or wherever you get your podcast audio from. If you guys just want to listen while you're on the road or whatever, we appreciate you guys liking, subscribing, and leave a comment for us. Let us know where you're listening from. We have people all over the world now listening, and it's really interesting to see that somebody's from Brazil or somebody's from Russia or somebody's from Pakistan or somebody's from England or whatever. Have you ever had a Bigfoot encounter? I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to hear what your encounter was. And if you want to be on the podcast, we'd love to hear about that too. So again, please comment down below. Thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you guys on the next one.